How's everyone doing today? I'm very grateful to hear and thanks for tuning in. Before I get going in on this video, I want to real quick, um, I want to thank everybody that reached out to me after my last video that have assisted me and um, just sent me messages. I really, really appreciate it and I love you all very much. It means a lot to me. Um, it's beautiful to see what this community is capable of when you know, some are in some tough spots or tough places. It's just, it's very heartwarming, and I love you all dearly, and thank you so much. So, I want to talk about attachments. This last transition I have moved through, or moving through currently, has been very eye opening for me when it comes to attachments and how they affect our lives and how they can affect our journeys if we allow them to. Um, and one thing I've learned from this experience, due to a lot of attachments that I had, energetically disconnecting, leaving, not being attached to them anymore, and something else came in to fill that void. It really showed me how much of my energy I had tied up in so many things. This is one of the biggest things I've realized with this last experience is how when you have so many attachments, and there's so many that I feel a lot are unaware of. We live in a society where there's so many things. There's so much technology. There's so many. People have certain things with food. People have certain things with. Um, it's really it's endless what we can have attachments to. And what are attachments? What's kind of the basic, and this is just my perception, is usually an attachment is, from what I've experienced, something that I am emotionally connected to. Um, that, you know, makes me happy. Some things I would use to make me happy if I was in emotional distress. Food was a great example. That was an attachment that I had, that when I was going through some tough times, food was, I went straight to food. So we have these things in our lives that we attach to energetically. And I think a very big thing that I've learned is that as we move through this ascension, we're bringing more frequencies in. We're bringing in higher frequencies, bringing more of ourselves into these vessels. And it's harder to do that when you have a pile of attachments because your energy is spread out. When I had this experience and I was losing these attachments that I had energetically, I personally had nothing to fill them up with. So something else came in to fill that void. You see, sometimes when we make changes, we go from one attachment, okay, I don't want to eat junk food anymore, to I want to eat healthy food. So we're making the transition in that sense. And I didn't have that transition. I had nothing else to fill that in. So something else came in, and it was was very powerful because I feel so much freer now and so much more at peace that I don't have all these connections. My energy isn't going out to all these different things, whether it's, a cell phone, whether it's, certain kind of food, whether it's family. I love my family dearly. But that was a big one for me. I've noticed was because when I made the move to the other state, I was cutting that cord. I love my family dearly, but I didn't want that energy coming with me into my new life, if that makes sense. And that was a big one for me. I didn't realize how much, when you leave your family, you leave the area that you grew up in. There's so many attachments there because I lived my whole life in that area, 27 years. So I had so many triggers, I had so many attachments, I had so many belief systems, habits, all that stuff was, in a very small area. And when I left all that behind and I disconnected from that, that's when I truly feel more of myself came in. Whether you call it the oversoul, the higher self, the God self, whatever you want to call it. It was just, for me, more of me came in to fill that gap. Because, like I said, at the time I had nothing to remedy those voids with when it comes to, materialistic things or pretty much anything, because I was sleeping in my car. There wasn't a whole lot there to work with. And I think that was part of the reason I had that experience, was to let it go and have something else come in and fill me up. And when I was filled up with more of myself, it was very powerful in the sense that so much more peace and bliss came in, and also freedom. I feel so much more free now than I can remember. And I think that has to do with not having my energy go in all these different directions. And that was a very powerful realization that I had with myself. And these are, like I said, this is just my perspective. This is just something that I've moved through, and I'm just making this so if someone can get something positive out of it, that'd be beautiful. So, and this is also, I think, a very big lesson that I will just use two beings, and there are many of them, males and females. There's many beautiful masters and Christed beings out there. I'm just going to use two that are pretty familiar, Buddha and Jesus. When you see or when you read stuff about these beings, these people, they had very, very little. And possession-wise. And I think the reason for that, and this is just my own perspective, is that they knew for them to reach those higher states of being, they needed to disconnect from a lot of the things in this dimension, attachment-wise. Now, I'm not saying that we should all be homeless or that we should all have nothing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, here, a great example, my cell phone. A lot of people, if they were to lose their cell phone, they're so attached to it that they would have an emotional reaction. If people lose their phone nowadays, they lose it a little bit. Not everybody, but vast majority. And that is an attachment. Now, I think what was so powerful about a lot of these masters and these Christed beings is they would experience where they would have things, but those things didn't bring them happiness, in the sense that if someone needed something, they were so willing to hand it over. Or if they needed to leave everything behind. It was a lot easier for them because they didn't have all these attachments to these things. They recognized these things. Well, I can't say they because I wasn't living there, but from my view is they were grateful for the things they had in their life, but they knew that things come and go, and they didn't attach to them. There wasn't an energetic cord, in a sense. They were just flowing freely. They weren't connected to it. They were using things, they were grateful, but when it was time to move on, or it was time to give away, or it was time to sell, they just did it. And that's a very powerful way to live, because when you think of Creator, when you think of Source, at least I do, Source creates and then moves on and creates the next thing. I don't feel Source creates something and then attaches to it. I feel Source creates and then moves, goes with the flow. And I think that the less attachments we have, the easier it is to create. One, because you have a higher amount of energy to work with. And it really helps with going with the flow. You don't have a bunch of stuff tying you down. I love the items I have, and I'm grateful, very grateful for the items I have in my life currently. But if I had to get rid of them at this current stage, I would. There may be a little bit of resistance at first. That's pretty typical when the human mind comes into play and starts to mess around a little bit, starts to jibber jab. But I feel that is kind of the biggest message that I felt this video needed, was to look at what you have in your life, if you wish, and decide what's time to move on, or if there's something you'd rather experience. And that actually brings up another good point that just came forth, is when it comes to manifesting, creating, when our energy is so spread out, it can be more difficult, because you've got so much stuff going on. Not saying for everybody. I'm just saying that personally, from my own experience, I've noticed that when I cleaned out my apartment, multiple times, things happened. Things came into my life pretty rapidly. And I truly feel that is due to the fact that I released a bunch of energetic debris in a sense. So, um, and I also wanted to say with the attachments, um, also look at the emotions connected to certain attachments. Because um, a great example, I'll just real quick tell a quick story. Growing up in my household, it was frowned upon, to say the least, to be tired during the day. I know it sounds silly, but if if I were to yawn or if I were to take a nap, it would be ridicule. You know, the saying was, "You'll sleep when you're dead." Sleeping in wasn't much of a thing. You know, it was pretty up early, and I'm more of a night person anyway, so getting up early was not my cup of tea. So what this did was create a belief system at a very young age that I wasn't supposed to be tired, or it wasn't normal to take naps. And right around that was the belief system that was created. I didn't currently have anything at that time that I could attach to physically. That came about around 16, 17. I was at school, I was working out a lot, and the gentleman I was working out with um, gave me a pre-workout. Pre-workout, for those that don't know, it's pretty much just an energy drink that assists with working out. There's different, ingredients in there to assist um, cardio, blood flow. There's a lot of stuff in it, but the biggest thing for me was the caffeine. And when I took that, it was a major jolt, because I've never had caffeine before, and I got hooked instantly. And the reason I got hooked, attached to this, was because of the belief system that it's not okay to be tired during the day. And I finally found something that I could take that would wake me up, because grown up, I was quite tired most of the time due to the food we were eating, also due to the certain energies in the house. I was quite lethargic for sure. So I attached this belief system to caffeine, and I currently still drink caffeine way, way, way less than I used to. But I think the biggest reason I feel called to share the story is um, how we attach to things due to emotions or belief systems. And um, that was a very hard attachment to break, and I'm still currently in the process of dealing with some of that some of that belief system. And this goes with every aspect of your life. There's many things that we get attached to due to emotions or belief systems that we have. Um, so that was a very powerful experience that I'm still currently working through, but I felt the need to say that so that people if they wish, people can look at certain aspects of their lives and say, why have I been doing this so long? What's the reason behind it? Because at the time when I was doing the caffeine, I didn't know. I was oblivious to it. It gave me energy. I liked it. I didn't know why I needed the energy. It's just something that, at the time, I was craving. Now, sitting back, reflecting on it, I can see and understand why that attachment, why that addiction started. Due to these belief systems and these certain emotions of being fearful of being tired during the day. That was frowned upon. So, sorry, just looking at some notes. Just want to make sure I talked about everything. So I think that's another big thing is, looking at the energy behind a certain attachment or addiction. Why do I need this in my life? Because, like I was saying earlier, one of the biggest things that I have noticed as I was releasing a lot of this energetic attachments is more and more peace would come in. Fill me right up. And now my creative juices are flowing like crazy. And I feel like creating. I feel like there's a lot of things that I've been pushing off for a long time that I feel like I'm ready to really jump into. And I completely credit it to releasing all of that old stuff and letting it go. And sometimes these attachments can be more difficult to let go than others. A great example for me was family. I have a very close family, very, very loving family. And that was definitely one of the biggest things was leaving that behind. But I love them dearly. And it wasn't, I didn't do what I did to cause them harm. I was ready to move on. I was ready to create something new. So, enough of my rambling. I think that's pretty much it. I just really, kind of the biggest thing was just, if you have time or if you're even interested in it, just looking at certain things that you're attached to and, decide if this attachment suits you or assists you in your growth. Again, we can have items, we can have a house, we can have all sorts of stuff. But it depends on what your emotional attachment is to that item. I think that's the most powerful thing. Is love what you have, be grateful for everything you have. But know that at any time it could be gone. And I don't say that in a negative way. I'm just saying that, lives change, people move, stuff happens. And these transitions, I feel, are a lot easier to move through when we have less things to detach from. At least that's my feeling of the whole thing. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about attachments. Hopefully some of this made sense. Um, so I love you all. You have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later.